Ramachandra Sangha Mange Narottama Dasa Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Daya Koro Caitanya Prabhu Daya Koro Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare
जय श्री श्री राधा गोवर्धन धारी भगवान की, कृष्णा बलराम भगवान की, गिरिराज महाराज की, नरसिंहदेव भगवान की, गौरानिताय भगवान की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की. So today we'll be reading from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi-lila, chapter 7, text 147. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Ei Mata Sarva Sutrera Vakhyana Suniya Sakala Sannyasi Kahe Vinaya Kariya Ei Mata Sarva Sutrera Vakhyana Suniya Sakala Sannyasi Kahe Vinaya Kariya Hey Mata, in this way, Sarva Sutrera, of all the codes of the Vedanta Sutra, Vakyana, explanation, Suniya, by hearing, Sakala, all, Sannyasi, the groups of Mayavadi sannyasis, Kahe, said, Vinaya, humbly, Kariya, doing so. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When all the Mayavadi sannyasis thus heard the explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the basis of Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojana, they spoke very humbly. Purport: everyone who actually desires to understand Vedanta philosophy must certainly accept the explanation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or the Vaishnava Acharyas, who have also commented on the Vedanta Sutra according to the principles of Bhakti Yoga. After hearing the explanation of Vedanta Sutra from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the sannyasis headed by Prakashananda Saraswati became very humble and obedient to the Lord, and they spoke as follows. So, this is where the purport ends. We'll speak a few points from this translation and purport, and then we'll move on to the next one, because it's very much related, same subject matter. So right now we are at the point where Lord Chaitanya has been sitting amongst the Mayavadi sannyasis, and the chief of these sannyasis, his name is Prakashananda Saraswati, and who he is explained a few texts later. And they've actually asked Lord Chaitanya, so we belong to the Shankaracharya sect and we follow these teachings, but please tell us the teachings from the Bhakti Yoga point of view. Please explain clearly from the Bhakti Yoga point of view. So Lord Chaitanya, he has explained, and he's explained quite a few things very concisely, about 11 things, which I will go through quickly. So after explaining all of this is where we are up to now, that all these Mayavadi sannyasis are now saying to Lord Chaitanya, and they've become obedient and very humble to him. So and we are being told that if we want to understand the Vedic philosophy, then we must accept these explanations given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or these explanations which are the very same given by the Vaishnava Acharyas in the disciplic succession, that we must accept these principles of Bhakti Yoga. So what are these things that Lord Chaitanya explained to the Mayavadi sannyasis? Firstly, he said to them that there are 3 features of the Absolute Truth, which we know. Who would like to say what these 3 features are of the Absolute Truth? Yes, these 3 features, which are the Brahma Jyoti, the Paramatma and Bhagavan. Then he also said, the second point that he made is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full of the 6 opulences, which we know the 6 opulences that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has in full. The third point that Lord Chaitanya spoke about to the Mayavadi sannyasis is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal, and that this Supreme Personality is a person. Number 5, he said that only by devotional service, beginning by hearing, can one approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and that the only means to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead is by devotional service. Then he said, number 6, which is also the content of today's purport is the Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojana, what these actually are, the explanations of these. And that, number 7, that by devotional service one develops love of Godhead. And number 8, that if love of Godhead does come, that material attachments are lost. And number 9, that it is taken to be the 5th goal of human life to achieve love of Godhead. And they are the first 4 are dharma, artha, kama, moksha, which is religiosity, sense gratification, liberation. And then number 5 is love of Godhead, that is the ultimate goal. Number 10, the 10th point that Lord Chaitanya explained to the Mayavadi sannyasis is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead actually submits himself, becomes submissive to a devotee due to his devotional service. And the 11th point that Lord Chaitanya said is that this knowledge of Sambandha, which is the relationship, of Abhideya, which is the devotional process, and of Prayojana, which is the ultimate goal of this human form of life, which is developing love of Godhead, that these 3 subject matters actually form the basis of all the Vedanta Sutra codes. That any shloka that you look at, it would be referring to one of these 3 subject matters. So these are the 11 things that Lord Chaitanya said to these Mayavadi sannyasis. And after that, we have come to this purport here, which after hearing him speak, they spoke to him very humbly and they became very obedient to him. And what they said to him was that, which is text 148 now. But before I go on there, I'll just like to just elaborate on one point from this purport, which is that we are told, if we actually want to understand the Vedic philosophy, that we must accept these explanations, these 11 things that I've just pointed out, that we must accept this. That way we can actually develop further and further in Bhakti Yoga. And one thing to say about just accepting this is that there are 2 ways of accepting it. The first is by just blindly accepting it and just believing it, that yes, everything written in the scriptures is true, and even though one may not have realization of it, but believing it. And this faith is not being silly. This faith is actually coming from association from previous lifetime. So having faith in the scriptures and the words of the scriptures is actually a very valuable thing, because in this world of doubt and misery, being able to actually believe the scriptures is really wonderful. So this blind faith, so-called blind faith, will, as one progresses on the path of devotion, will become realization. And the second way of actually accepting these things are by realization. And realization comes not by just inactivity, but the whole process of devotional life is devotional service. So by engaging in devotional service, all these realizations just come. Even though one may not be a scholar, but all these realizations come. Like there's this story which we are told, which is that there was a man who was very intelligent, and he came to the temple, and he was asking, the pujaris, how can you be so happy just washing the pots and making the utensils shiny? How can you just be so happy doing that? And the pujaris, instead of replying him, gave him a cloth to go and do some service and also shine utensils. And after a whole day of doing that, this man said, oh, I now understand why you're feeling so happy. So this process of devotional service gives us realization and understanding, and also detachment from material things. So all these things which we can cultivate by reading and studying, we can very easily also obtain just by performing devotional service, which is the most important of which is hearing. So so then going on to text 148. So this is now the Mayavadi sannyasis, and they are speaking to Lord Chaitanya, and they are saying to him, Vedamaya murti tumi sakshad narayana shama aparada purve ye khalu nindana. So they are saying to him, Dear sir, you are Vedic knowledge personified and are directly Narayan himself. Please kindly excuse us for the offenses we have previously committed by criticizing you. So this is what they have now realized, that Lord Chaitanya is the self-same as Narayan, and they are begging his forgiveness for offenses they have done in the past by criticizing him. So then the purport of this is, the complete path of Bhakti Yoga is based on the process of becoming humble and submissive. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the Mayavadi sannyasis were very humble and submissive after hearing his explanation of Vedanta Sutra, and they begged to be pardoned for the offenses they had committed by criticizing the Lord for simply chanting and dancing and not taking part in the study of Vedanta Sutra. We are propagating the Krishna consciousness movement simply by following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We may not be very well versed in the Vedanta Sutra codes and may not understand their meaning, but if we follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas, and because of our strictly and obediently following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is to be understood that we know everything regarding Vedanta Sutra. So actually this is what I was just saying before reading this purport, which is that this process of Bhakti Yoga becomes easy to understand and is automatically understood just by performing devotional service. And also that this mood of being humble and submissive is required, but not artificially. So being humble and submissive, is a tall order, and all of us want to be the boss. So it can be difficult. But when we take to this process of devotional service, then mentorship and learning from superiors and learning from the scriptures needs to be done in a humble way, because then progress is quicker. But again, this humility shouldn't really be artificially put on, because otherwise internally there'll be anger. So it needs to be done according to how and what level one feels comfortable in. So Lord Chaitanya, in the Sixthashtakam, which we just recite every morning, he highlights humility and tolerance, and these two things are really important in progressing on the path of devotion. And by accepting that there is something greater than us, that this process and this philosophy and the Supreme Lord, that they are much greater than us, much, much, much greater than us, and that even by just a flick of his finger like that, Krishna can really break us to smithereens. So there can be some humility developing like that, but one important thing to say is this humility is based on love and not on fear. So this is important, that it develops in a positive way rather than a negative way. So these Mayavadi sannyasis had in the past criticized Lord Chaitanya for not being a student of the Vedanta, for not being studying so much. However, and just chanting and dancing, that all you do is chant and dance, you don't actually study the Vedanta Sutra, so you're not very learned. That's how they criticized him. So now they beg forgiveness for that. And what is said here is that even though we may not know all the scriptures and all the things written in the Vedanta Sutra, simply by following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya and the 6 Goswamis and our previous acharyas who all sang, danced and ate prasadam. By doing these simple things, we are taken to know that we actually understand everything in the Vedanta Sutra because we are practicing it. So by actually demonstrating, so there's knowledge and realized knowledge. Realized knowledge is when we are actually performing the actions that the scriptures say. So by singing, dancing, having prasadam, associating, doing devotional service, all of this we are actually doing the process, and in doing the process we are demonstrating that we have understood and we know the conclusions. And even if we don't know, it will come automatically as one progresses on the path of devotion. So from that moment, when the Mayavadi sannyasis heard the explanation of Vedanta Sutra from the Lord, their minds changed. And on the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they too chanted Krishna, Krishna always. So they also became devotees. So in the beginning of the Adi-lila, there is a verse which says, this Krishna consciousness movement is a big flood, and that this flood is going in all directions, upwards, downwards, sideways, and everybody has, is flowing along in this flood, except for one group of people. And this one group of people are the Mayavadi sannyasis, are the Mayavadis actually. So now we have come to the point that by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, these Mayavadis have also become devotees. So it took them a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra mercy and effort from Lord Chaitanya, but they also became devotees. So this very hard group of people to convince also became devotees by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Okay, so so here this text is now 149. This is where the identity of Prakashananda Saraswati, who is the head of the Mayavadi sannyasis, his identity is being explained. So in this connection, it may be mentioned that sometimes the Sahajiya class of devotees opine that Prakashananda Saraswati and Prabodhananda Saraswati are the same man. Prabodhananda Saraswati was actually a great Vaishnava devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Prakashananda Saraswati, the head of the Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares, was a different person. Prabodhananda Saraswati belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya, whereas Prakashananda Saraswati belonged to the Shankacharya Sampradaya. Prabodhananda Saraswati wrote a number of books, among which are Caitanya Caritamrita, Radha Rasa Sudhi Nidhi, Sangeeta Madhava Vrindavana Shataka, and Navadvipa Shataka. While traveling in southern India, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Prabodhananda Saraswati, who had two brothers, Venkat Bhatt and Tirumalya Bhatt, who were Vaishnavas of the Ramanuja Sampradaya. Gopala Bhatta Goswami was the nephew of Prabodhananda Saraswati. So we know Gopala Bhatta Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis, and this whole lineage is being explained. And that Prabodhananda Saraswati was the person that Lord Chaitanya had met along with his two brothers in South India. And from historical records, it is found that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled in South India in the year 1433, Sakadpa, during the Chaturmasya period, and it was at that time that he met Prabodhananda, who belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya. How then could the same person meet him as a member of the Sankacharya Sampradaya in 1435 Sakadpa, 2 years later? It is to be concluded that the guess of the Sahajiya Sampradaya that Prabodhananda Saraswati and Prakashananda Saraswati were the same man is a mistaken idea. So this purport is there to clarify that the head of the Mayavadi sannyasis, whose name was Prakashananda Saraswati, was completely different from Prabodhananda Saraswati, who was a great Vaishnava, and it is, and this great Vaishnava, he had written so many books, and that he belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and that from his lineage came Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who is one of the 6 Goswamis. And that Gopala Bhatta Goswami is actually the one who then manifested from his Shaligram Shilas the Radha Ramana deity in Vrindavan. So, okay. So, right, I think what I'd like to say now is that one of the, in text 147, one of the main things that that we were told about was this, the three features of the path of devotional service, which is the Sambandha, the Abhidheya, and the Prayojana. So this is really interesting, and it is really important for us to know, because as we read in the purports, that these 3 subject matters, pretty much whatever shloka we read, these 3 subject matters would be one of the subject matters being discussed. So I'd like to explain that a little bit, this Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana, and then we'll see if we have any more time. Okay, so Sambandha, even now this word is used in the Hindi language, in everyday Hindi language, and also in Sanskrit, of course. So Sambandha means relationship, and Sambandha means that we establish our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how we do that, this is called Sambandha Jnana. Jnana just means knowledge. So this knowledge of how to develop our relationship. So we are being told that to develop this Sambandha Jnana, we need to read the scriptures and understand what Sanatana Goswami has written. That Sanatana Goswami is the Acharya of Sambandha Jnana, and the deity that is responsible for Sambandha Jnana is Sanatana Goswami's deity, Madan Mohan. By serving the deity of Madan Mohan in whichever way, and also by reading and developing our knowledge as explained by Sanatana Goswami, that we we establish that relationship. Then the second point is, I'll go quickly and then I'll go in a bit more detail. The second thing is Abhidheya. Abhidheya basically means is working in that relationship. So the give and take of the relationship, performing devotional service basically. So now we know we are the servant, and that's the Supreme Lord. We have developed that Sambandha, that relationship, and now Abhidheya is do the give and take of the relationship. So basically performing devotional service as a servant of the Lord. And this Abhidheya is under the direction of the deity of Sri Govindaji, and this is under the instruction of Sri Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami, this is actually very, very important, because we are all Rupanugas. So on this path of devotional service, as devotees of the Hare Krishna movement, we are all followers of Rupa Goswami. So we are meant to be reading and cultivating our knowledge of the scriptures that Rupa Goswami has written, and worshipping in whichever way the Govinda Ji deity. And this will help us in our devotional service. Then the Prayojana Siddhi. Prayojana Siddhi is achieving the perfection of this human life. Prayojana is the ultimate goal, which is having developed this love of Godhead. And this is under the jurisdiction of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. He is our Prayojana Acharya, and the Gopinath deity is the deity that is governing this love of Godhead. So there is much more detail, and it's all very beautiful. That how we actually develop in all of this, and this was just one of the points that Lord Chaitanya had explained to the Mayavadi philosophers, and this is the point that is being highlighted in this verse today. That so I will say a few more details about this. One thing I wanted to share before I get into the details is one easy way to understand this is having a job. So when we have a job, we get given a job title, that you're the cook, for example. So you know, okay, I'm the cook. So that's like the sambandha. You have developed an identity. And then, now what do you do as the cook? The working of the cook is the abhideya, or the actual work, doing the work. So that's devotional service. And then achieving success as a cook would be being able to cook nice prasadam, and also achieving success by getting compensation for the job, right? So that success is it's a mundane example, but that pretty much is prayojana. So so going back to the spiritual example, sambandha is identifying ourselves as the servant. Abhideya is performing our duties in devotional service as a servant of the Lord, and Prayojana Siddhi is achieving the success of having done all this devotional service, which is achieving love of Godhead. And each of these three have different deities and different Goswamis governing that. So because we did mention Radha Raman today, I will just say something about the deities. That the Madan Mohan deity is very beautiful. All these deities are very beautiful, and that these three deities that govern these three components of Bhakti Yoga, that they all have very specific qualities. And in the beginning we must worship Madan Mohan so that he may attract us, like Madan Mohan means attractive, he who attracts. So he may attract us and may nullify our attachment for material sense gratification, and that this relationship is necessary, and that the Madan Mohan deity, his feet and his legs are very beautiful in particular. Then the Govinda deity, he's the Govinda deity governs the Abhideya, the process of devotional service, and that his chest is very beautiful. And then we have the last deity, Gopinath, that his face is very beautiful, and that all these, and that finally when Radharaman actually self-appeared, that when all the Goswamis went to have darshan of Radharaman, that they all said that Radharaman had the feet of Madan Mohan, the flute playing midsection of Govinda, and the face of Gopinath. That all three deities have come in this one divine form of Radharaman. So I know that previously some devotees, when they would go to the holy dham, they would first go to take darshan of Madan Mohan, then they would go to Jaipur and take darshan of Govinda Dev, then they'd come back and then take darshan of Gopinath, and that all had to be done within a day, so that it would mean they have been successful. But just by seeing Radharaman, we can see all the three deities in one. And yeah, and also these names of Madan Mohan, Govinda Dev, and Gopinath, they mean something. Madan Mohan is one who attracts, and we know Radharani is Madan Mohan Mohini, so she even attracts Krishna. And that Govinda Dev, means one who gives pleasure to the senses, the cows, and the land. So by performing devotional service, we actually get pleasure. And that is why we feel happy when we're doing devotional service. So, and that Gopinath is the beloved of the gopis. That is complete surrender, and he is the one who is in charge of the gopis, who belongs to the gopis. So this is the meaning of Gopinath. And Radharaman means one who gives the highest pleasure to Radharani. So Krishna who gives the highest pleasure to Radharani. So this is one of the very, very deep philosophical facts that Lord Chaitanya explained to the Mayavadi philosophers. And this is the main subject matter of today's purport. So yes, I thought we should speak a little bit in depth about that. So I'll stop here. If anyone would like to add any comments or ask any questions, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Mataji. My question is about, you spoke at the start of the lecture about humility. The first 147, as I became humble. Just wondering if humility is something that's practiced consciously, or is there something you have to do, or is it something that manifests in purification naturally?
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the question. The question, I'm sure everybody heard, is does humility come naturally as we progress, or is it a prerequisite? Or practiced, yes. So I will attempt to answer. So in our dealings with devotees, we need to be practicing humility, and as I said earlier, it should be genuine humility, which can be very hard to muster up sometimes if we don't have respect for the person we're talking to. So the best way that I personally find of doing this is that I think that I don't know this person, Krishna knows this person, Krishna loves this person, so who am I to judge this person? And I try to basically relate to that person as simply and as humbly as possible, and that practice does make perfect. And that finding that seed of genuineness within myself, that okay, I need to actually respect this person for them being a jiva, a spirit soul, who is a servant of the Lord, who may or may not know it at this stage, whatever stage they are on the path of devotion, but relating to them at that level. And that also then goes back to whether there are Kanishta, Madhyam, or an Uttam Adhikari, relating to them like that. So that's one thing. And then practically, when it's very, very, very easy to become puffed up, but it's extremely difficult to become humble. So there are some practical tips on how to become humble, and as I said, practice does make perfect. So these practical tips, some of them are that when you are glorified, deflect it to others. That anyone could have done this, or that if I wasn't the one doing this, then Krishna would have had somebody else doing this. Deflecting the humility like that. Also understanding that even though I may be really, really good at doing something, that there is always somebody better at doing that. And if there's nobody better at doing that, then there is Krishna who is the best at doing that. So, and also appreciation of, so having an attitude of gratitude that I have become this person, or I have achieved this, not simply by my own endeavor, but it is simply by the mercy of the devotees. And that I have come this far, it is, the mercy of everyone around me that has allowed me. The mercy of my parents for bringing me up, the mercy of my guru for giving instructions, the mercy of all the devotees. So all these things, and this can be applied both spiritually and materially, spiritual life and material life. So cultivating this attitude and also practicing these practical tips, because we've all felt it. When somebody praises us, we feel this heat and we go, oh yeah, and our head becomes this big. Well, maybe not for you, but for me at least. And then but then at that point, being sober and deflecting the praise, accepting that of course we all have made that endeavor, because devotional service is not, it just doesn't come automatically. We have to work hard. So that we have made that endeavor, accepting it, that yes, I've done this, but whatever the result is, has come because of Krishna's mercy and the mercy of everyone else. So and that is one of the philosophy, the main points in the Bhagavad Gita too, that doing the job but not expecting results for yourself, giving the result back to Krishna. So these things I find beneficial, that it has helped me practice humility, and also that that by practicing one does get perfect in being humble. And another great way, a quick and easy way of becoming humble is actually associating with devotees who are humble. So when we associate with devotees who are humble, we actually, by thinking about their qualities, we actually get the quality. This is one of the biggest open secrets in devotional life, that if you want something, that you just have to meditate on that quality in that person, and just by meditating about it and thinking about it, it becomes, you actually get that quality. So humility can be achieved in that way too, by seeing the mood of great devotees. And one example from the scriptures is the 6 Goswamis, that there is Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, all these 6 wonderful Goswamis, and all of them have such wonderful deities, such wonderful qualities, have written so many books, but when they dealt with each other, they were always dealing with each other in a very humble way. They were all sincere, humble devotees. And also regarding Diksha and Shiksha Guru, that wasn't so much it was kind of a practical matter, that everybody got initiated by the one person, and one of the Goswamis, and the other Goswamis just gave Siksha. So there wasn't really any competition or any ego involved like that. It was, so by learning from the example of the 6 Goswamis and other devotees, we can imbibe humility. My question to you all is, what is more difficult to get, humility or tolerance?
Tolerance.
I find that myself. Maharaj, would you like to say something?
In fact, his question was, it's both, because it's intrinsic in all spirit souls. Humility is a quality of the spirit soul. So it's now covered. So by purification, that quality of humility and tolerance, and all these qualities will come up more strongly. So that's one thing. And then you answered about attitude. Attitude is one aspect. But there's also, on the practical side, Prabhupada gives very specific direction. Just by coming to the temple and paying obeisance is an act of humility. Offering prayers is an act of humility. When we have the Guru Puja, all the devotees come and bow down before the Guru. Prabhupada won't come and explain that. And that's every day. Not that he said actually, not that I'm requiring, but it's training you to be humble before the spiritual master. No one likes to bow down. I remember when I first came to the temple, I brought some friends, and and I said later on, I said, well, how did you like it? And the girlfriend of the boy said, well, it's all right, but all this bowing down. All this bowing down, it just seems unnatural. Well, yes, it may be, but it's actually making us be humble. You know, we bow down, bow down before the Guru, we offer obeisances. So these are practical, and you touched on the other, then Prabhupada in the Bhagavatam gives some specific, said, you mentioned association with the devotee. He goes further to serve the devotee.
Yeah.
So do service, do seva. Because everyone likes to be served. But they don't feel it. So by doing seva, especially to very advanced devotees, but to all devotees, and that could mean, serving the prasadam, doing seva, that is a practical application of practicing humility. So, and then all the things that you said is about the attitude. So what's your attitude? That attitude, practical example, and it is also intrinsic. So by doing all that, and the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that by performing devotional service, both aspects are achieved. The intrinsic quality comes out by purification, and then by practicing, we're doing devotional service as well. So humility, and all these qualities are very much described by the Acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and tolerance and all these things, how to develop tolerance in their book, in their different works, and then their offerings to the devotees. So one can read about it.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. That was just amazing.
Many people in the material world talk about tolerance or humility or compassion. Is it possible, even for one who's like highly situated in the mode of goodness, to have real tolerance, humility, and compassion if he's not engaged in devotional service?
Thank you for the question. KK Prabhu, would you like to say anything about that question? Okay. So, not really. No is the short answer, but activities done in the mode of goodness still come, because activities done in any of the three modes still come under material activity. So, and it is very attractive actually to be doing things in the mode of goodness, which is where charity work is, and it is very rewarding to feel the benefit. I've given this big amount, and now there'll be a school built and things like that. So it feels good, but it is still an activity in the mode of goodness. And we know from the scriptures that genuine compassion and genuine tolerance and all of that is actually saving spirit souls and making them aware of their identity as spirit souls, and ultimately just setting them on the path so that they're walking on the path of the bhakti yoga back to Krishna. So this is what this whole human form of life is meant for. All the other activities are material activities. However, activities in the mode of goodness are definitely better than activities in the lower modes, and it is a really good launching pad for going higher. So some people, they go through a natural progression of ignorance and passion and then goodness and then becoming spiritual. But some people, we just catch the supersonic jet of Krishna consciousness, and no matter what level we are at, we just become spiritual. So I hope that has answered your question.
I have to remember. I have to remember how to formulate this. Thank you. The class. So I've been reflecting on the service, the devotional service for the last few days, and then you spoke about it today, so it was really nice to hear you talk about that. And in yesterday's class, Mara was talking about austerity, and I was thinking, and then this humility, this explanation of humility just came into the equation, and it's like, I've observed in my life that there's a lot of fun service, you know, that's like, yeah, I love that, it's really fun. And then the service that has austerity connected to it. But in that service, you can find real bliss if you can come from a place of humility. So if you actually are performing service that has austerity attached to it, and with humility you surrender to that, then you can actually find a really wonderful reciprocation from Krishna. Because, you know, I mean, it's nice that we spend our life in service, but sometimes I see the distinction between fun service and the service that has a little bit of austerity involved with it. So I was just reflecting on that as we were speaking about service and austerity yesterday, and then the humility. So it all kind of ties in together, where we accept the service that Krishna throws at us with gratitude, and then with humility we perform that service, even if it's really austere. You know, there's times when you're, you know, cleaning pots, and you're like, okay, this is your Krishna, thank you for this. Like, I feel so grateful. So yeah, I was just reflecting on that, and if you want to, like, maybe elaborate on how we can actually get to that place of gratitude within the service.
Thank you very much for your wonderful comment and practical realization. So one of the characteristics of pure devotional service, as explained in the Nectar of Devotion, is that it gives immediate relief from all material suffering. So there are 6 of these characteristics of pure devotional service. And this one here is, you know, what we experience, this bliss of when we do devotional service. And it actually is the sweetest thing. That is why people who become devotees and experience this bliss, they are spoiled for material life. They can't actually have material enjoyment anymore. You know, this sweetest bliss of service has spoiled all the other tastes. So also just yesterday I was listening to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said that this devotional service, if it doesn't matter if one is a pujari or one is a gardener, that the service that a gardener is doing is equal to that a pujari is doing. So you know, there are things that sometimes a person may do because they want distinction, and you know, profit, adoration, distinction, these are the 3 things that we are, you know, one of the 3 of the anarthas that we are meant to be avoiding. So you know, by being very honest, and this is why it's called self-realization, because we are going internal, we are not actually doing it for show. So you know, by being very honest when given a service, that why am I doing this, why do I want to do this, how can I be genuine about doing this, what would Prabhupada want me to do, like, you know, all these things, we can actually really cultivate our consciousness to see where we are coming from, to see why we want to do that service. And if the answer is that, oh, I'll get noticed, oh, you know, I'll be called the purest devotee, or people will think I'm so pure. So, you know, if that's the answer, then, you know, that's the wrong motivation. So, you know, we shouldn't be too harsh on ourselves. We just need to accept it, that, okay, this is where I'm up to, and I'd better, you know, move on from there. So then if we're doing something not to be noticed, but to actually serve the Lord and make the Lord happy and make the devotees happy, then that's you know, what our motivation needs to be. So how to actually get there is also a practical matter, because service, you know, Prabhupada said you should be ready to do anything in an emergency situation. However, to really stick at something, to really stick at a service, it has to match our psychophysical nature. So, you know, we need to, you know, it needs to match our mentality, our body type, and our capabilities. So that way we can actually stick at a service. Whereas if we are asked to do something in an emergency situation, like Prabhupada said, you need to be able to do that. Like anybody should be able to give a class, should be able to cook, should be able to lead kirtan if needed. But if that's not where you feel very comfortable, then it means there is another service for you, which is a place that you can actually just do that service and go back to Godhead, because you'll be completely happy in that service. So the other point to say is that all services are actually equal. Krishna sees both front stage and backstage equally, and he gives us benefit equally depending on whatever we are doing, as long as we are doing it in the right mood. So also another thing to say is service is performed with the subtle body. It's performed with the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence and the ego, not really by the material body. So if somebody's on the altar doing something but their mind is somewhere else, so that doesn't really give them too much spiritual benefit. Whereas when we're doing it with the mind, intelligence, ego, really there, then we are getting the full benefit of it. So thank you very much for allowing us to go deeper and deeper in this topic. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Yay.